Hey, welcome back to Two Old Geeks. I'm Rob,
I'm Trace.
and today we're discussing.
Hawkeye.
There you go.
So I'm a huge Hawkeye fan, and thank you guys for tuning in. And so today we're going to talk about Hawkeye's comic book origins. We're going to talk about his appearances in the MCU. We're going to talk about the new Disney Plus series.
Okay.
So let's start it out. So Hawkeye first appeared. I actually have Hawkeye's first comic book appearance.
Okay.
Did you know that?
No.
Well, you don't seem as impressed as I thought you would. So he actually appeared in Tales of Suspense number 57. And so that's a hard to come by, and that's one of my holy grails. I actually picked it up at a, what do you call that? Goodwill. I got that at a Goodwill
Seriously?
store. Yes, years and years and years ago.
That was
A bunch of
back when
comics
Black
they had.
Widow wasn't redheaded.
Yeah, and so that was back when you could find a deal, and everybody didn't know what everything was worth. But his first appearance, Iron Man didn't have his own title, so Hawkeye shows up as a villain in an Iron Man story, but the story actually appeared in a series called Tales of Suspense. Iron Man becomes so popular, they get his own series, and eventually Hawkeye went along with him. But just tell you about his origin. You like Batman.
Yeah.
So the reason you like Batman, you've told me, is because he's just like this. He don't have any superpower.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like that in most of my heroes. Yeah.
So same thing with Hawkeye here. And just like Batman had a rough family life, obviously, Hawkeye had one too, maybe even rougher. So Hawkeye's Clint.
Rougher than having your parents killed in front of you?
Yeah, well, Clint Barton is his name, okay? So his dad was alcoholic, beat his mom. They died in a car wreck. He ends up going to an orphanage. Orphanage he can't stand, so him and his brother Barney, they escape the orphanage. And you remember when we were kids and you'd always hear, I'm going to run away from home and join the circus?
Right.
We actually ran away from home and ran away from the orphanage and joined the circus. So in the circus, he makes friends with a couple of carnies. One's called the Swordsman, and so he learns martial arts and sword skills from him, which he'll use later as a character called Ronin, which we'll get to that. And then he took up a friendship with an older guy called Trick Shot, and so he showed him how to use archery. So he practiced and practiced and practiced, and he become the star of the show. So he's out there doing all these tricks with archery the way Hired Hill did back in the day. And so he's getting lots of attention. Well, one day, Tony Stark happens to be at the carnival.
Right.
One of the rides break, and so Tony has his briefcase with his Iron Man suit in it, so he throws it on.
Even back then he had his
Even back
briefcase?
then, yeah, because you didn't want to leave home without it.
All right.
So he saves the day. He saves a lot of people from a ride gone crazy. Well, it kind of irritates Clint, and Clint's kind of a little bit of a butthole. He kind of bucks against authority. So Clint, he's like, I can be a superhero. So he goes home and he makes him a suit. He goes out and tries to foil some bank jewel thieves. They drop the loot. He picks it up. Cops come around the corner, think he's a supervillain. Think he's the one that stole the stuff.
Right.
So he's running from the cops. Nice looking sports car pulls up. And the Black Widow, which you see him with a lot, is in there, and he's just enamored by this beautiful woman. He jumps in, gets away from the cops.
I actually got that comic too.
Oh yeah, you do?
Yeah.
Cool. It's worth some money. So his criminal career kind of came about because of the Black Widow, and she was a big influence on him. So he continued to fight Hawkeye off and on for several issues and several appearances until he finally joined the Avengers in issue 16, which I just have issue 17. So sorry, this is as close as I can get. We joined the Avengers. He actually broke into the Avengers mansion. Wanted to prove to him he wasn't a supervillain by doing some B&E, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Right.
But he convinces them all, and so Captain America takes up for him, Iron Man takes up for him, and so he joins the Avengers. And he's constantly butting heads with Captain America because he really didn't have any authority figures growing up. So to say he's a rebel would be kind of above and beyond. But eventually he falls in and starts doing well with the team. And so they decide to branch out and start another branch of the Avengers. And they call it the West Coast Avengers. So I think you had some of these comics too growing up.
I tried them.
Yeah, they're well, we'll talk about him in a minute. The West Coast Avengers, he was the leader of the West Coast Avengers. And then so he kind of learned his leadership skills there. Eventually they changed this to Avengers West Coast because they wanted on the comic book rack. They wanted Avengers and Avengers West Coast. They didn't want Avengers and West Coast Avengers all the way at the other end. Because typically in your comic book shops, they put that stuff in there in alphabetical order.
Right.
And so what was your thoughts so far on that? Because I know you had some experience with West Coast Avengers.
Okay, let me backtrack.
Please do.
You covered a lot of time.
Oh, I'm not done yet.
I know.
But go ahead.
Okay, I've always thought of Hawkeye as a crap character, and this was a crap generic Avengers group. It was a bunch of goofy characters, and every now and again they would throw somebody in there like Spider-Man or Iron Man to try to make it halfway decent. He was a poor imitation of Green Arrow, because I'm the DC fan,
Right.
and Marvel was trying to capture some of the luster off of the success of Green Arrow. I think it was a crap origin. I think he's a crap character.
I mean, well, first of all, I love archery and I love Marvel, so it makes sense that I would be drawn toward
the Archer
of
right.
Marvel.
And
I did try out Green Arrow,
Okay.
but for some reason DC. I know you love DC and I'm Marvel. And you like vampires and I like werewolves.
Right.
And we could go on and on. But the thing is that just something about the Green Arrow didn't grab me, But
well, see, there was something about him that didn't grab me. I mean, he didn't start being a hero the way most people come about being a hero. He became a hero because he was jelly. He was jealous of what Iron Man had and literally stole some of his technology to create some of his very first arrows, right?
Yeah, well, actually, the Russians were helping him with his trick arrows once he got with Black Widow. And then, but yeah, I mean, he's kind of a little bit of an anti-hero, a little bit in a way. Okay. He was a way. Anytime you have a superhero team, you need somebody to ground that superhero team. So, in other words, and we'll get into that when we talk about it in the movies. But when you got Thor, who's the god of thunder, and Hulk, who's some big gamma radiation beast, and Captain America, who's got super serum. It's nice to have a guy that just shoots bows and arrows. That's kind of way we can relate to that team. And for me, now obviously not you, because it sounds like you hate Hawkeye, but for me, that's the way I related to those superheroes, was through a guy that was just good with a stick and a string.
Right.
So they tried to send Hawkeye on his own and do a solo series. So this is one of the attempts. They give him a sky cycle. It's like a motorcycle, but it's like a hovercraft.
Like the Fantastic Four did.
And you're right. Hawkeye really wasn't the really super popular character, and so
wasn't.
Well, I think he is now, but with some people. But the thing is that this is another attempt of him solo. It's a retelling of his origin, and so they had solo adventures, and Hawkeye was in most of those.
So when they retold it, did they tweak it any, or did they leave it pretty much the same?
They tweaked it a little bit because it seems like they got to tweak everything, but for the most part, it stayed the same.
Okay.
So then they tried another solo series. You had another solo series, and so this one I really, really liked, and I'll probably get the name wrong. Fabian Nizia.
What year did that come out?
This is like the 90s, but it started another series. The first story arc was a hard shaft, and I think it had like 5 or 6 parts. But this was a good story. They took Hawkeye and they made him almost like Bullseye. He used arrows. He used a bow and arrow, but in reality, he could pick up a fork or do anything. I mean, he was super accurate with almost any projectile. He just happened to prefer a bow and arrow. And in this, they took away the sky cycle. He had a motorcycle. He traveled from town to town, getting in trouble and saving people.
So this is after he tried to be
a hero.
Two other heroes.
Right.
He wasn't just an archer. One time he tried to take up the mantle and was like some giant guy. I mean,
he took some pin particles and was Goliath for a little bit.
Right, and then didn't he try his hand at Captain America there for a little bit?
No. But he was a character called.
That. Let me know.
He was a character called Ronin for a little bit.
Right, but I think he tried to carry the mantle of Captain America one time.
I don't think so, but
okay,
maybe. But So then he had another limited series, and this is great. So if you're a Hawkeye fan, definitely not Robert, but if you're a Hawkeye fan, try to pick this one up. The High Hard Shaft. Start with that. It's in issue 1. Also, he met him a woman named Mockingbird who was tied in with Shield. He ended up marrying her, and in true comic book fashion. They eventually broke up. They eventually both got killed. They got resurrected, and so on and so forth. Like
what happens in comic books.
What characters do. But that's a good story. If you can pick up Hawkeye and Mockingbird #1, that was good. He always kept his ties with the Black Widow. He had a relationship with her. He turned good. She turned good. She was a KGB agent, and he was mistaken for a supervillain, like we talked about earlier. And so he always kept his ties with her. And so the Widowmaker series is kind of a sequel to the Hawkeye and Mockingbird series. And those are very well written, come out in the 90s. You can get them for little or nothing. And they're good reads as well. So I would definitely recommend that.
So when he was Ronin, was he a villain?
Well, the very first Ronin was a character called Echo, who appeared in Daredevil. And Ronin's like a ninja outfit that some people from Marvel will pick up. There's been like 4, I think, throughout the Marvel history. And it's always, anytime Ronin shows up, you're always wondering who's in the mask. Okay. And so there's a reason he went into the Ronin outfit, and we'll talk about that here in a minute when we get into the MCU. So finally, still, like Robert said, Hawkeye's not popular with anybody but Trace. But all of a sudden, this guy comes along, Matt Fraction, and a guy named David Aja started doing the art. And he come out with a 22-issue series that kind of revamped Hawkeye. And what they did was they took him away from the Avengers and put him, this is a guy that goes to the laundromat, this is a guy that sees a dog that's run over the road and takes him to the vet. So this is a guy that's a real street level hero. And so it was interesting to see him away from the Avengers and just see him every day. He'd gone through a lot. He was suffering from depression. One time he shot off a sonic arrow to defeat a supervillain and lost 80% of his hearing. So he's got to have hearing aids. And so the pinnacle of all comic book Hawkeye stories would be the Matt Fraction and David Aja run that lasted, like I said, 20-some issues.
So he put himself down.
Yeah, to beat this hero, which he went unconscious.
Okay, so he sacrificed. It wasn't like he just messed up.
Yeah. So in that series was introduced Kate Bishop, which a lot of younger people will know as Hawkeye, because Hawkeye's kind of moved on and gone into retirement in the comic books. And Kate Bishop come up through the ranks, and she's in the Young Avengers, and she's had her own comics as well, and she's super popular with young people. I could take her or leave her, but the thing is, the old Hawkeye, the male Hawkeye, and the young Hawkeye, there's a good dynamic there, and it's interesting. It's like a clash of generations.
Now, how did they unite? How did they come across each other?
Just a common adventure. Just like, they both fall into the same scenario, and they happen to be in the same area at the same time.
Okay.
And he actually gave her permission to take the Hawkeye name, and as he went into retirement. So one of the best comic book series that ever came out, and even Robert will even agree with me on this, is Old Man Logan.
That's Marvel.
Yeah, and I won't go into too much detail other than they had an Old Man Hawkeye.
Right.
And when they had Old Man Hawkeye in there, he was so popular they come out with Old Man Hawkeye series.
Oh, I did not know
which
that.
is a prequel to the Old Man Logan. And I really like series that close stuff out. Like there was a comic called Punisher the End, which is supposed to be the last Punisher story.
Right.
There was Daredevil the End, the last Daredevil story. There's the last Ronin, which is the last Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle story. And then there's this, which kind of ends the Hawkeye saga. And so I really like, being an old man myself, this comic, if you can pick it up, this ran 12 issues. It's fantastic. Most of the heroes are dead, and Hawkeye and just a few are still around. And it's like a post-apocalyptic type setting. And
wasn't he blind in that series?
He was blind in this. This is a prequel, and this shows you how he got blind.
Before he got blind. So how did it wrap things up if it was a prequel?
A prequel, he basically, where the Old Man Logan started, this is where this left. So he got blinded.
Then that's not a prequel.
Prequel was earlier. So this come first.
I thought you said this was the end of this.
Second. No. This ties into this. The Old Man Logan first, and then Old Man Logan second, and then Old Man Hawkeye first. So this come first, then this.
Okay.
So, but anyway, if you can check those comic series out, definitely do that. So I haven't collected Hawkeye in years, and so they started introducing him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so the first time you see Hawkeye is in the Thor, and so he's only in there for like 5 minutes, and so it's just their way of introducing the character. And Thor's trying to pick up Mjolnir, is that how they say it?
Mjolnir.
Yeah, and so and Hawkeye, he's up on a crane with a big compound bow. And in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Hawkeye is a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. He actually works for S.H.I.E.L.D. And he was actually sent to kill the Black Widow. You find out later on in another movie. And then he decided to save her, and he converted her over, and she became an Avenger like him. So he still got that relationship with Black Widow. So you get just a small taste of there. Now Jeremy Renner, he plays Hawkeye, and that would have been my first choice, but man, he's a good actor, and he does such a good job. So the next movie was Avengers, and you see Hawkeye again, but Hawkeye gets taken over by Loki at the beginning of the movie. So you see what Hawkeye's capable of if he's a bad guy, if he has no restraint. And so underneath Loki's influence, he does an incredible amount of damage. Brings down a S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier and has a fight with Black Widow, and she's reluctant to take him down, just like he didn't take her down in the past.
So the cinematic universe, they have a different take on Hawkeye than the comic books do.
Totally different.
See, I prefer this one over the written one because he actually seems like he has something to fight for. Right. I'm sure we'll get into that further into it.
So the next time you see Hawkeye is in Age of Ultron. So in this one, it delves a little bit more into Hawkeye and Black Widow's past. You see that Hawkeye has a family. He has a wife who's a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and that's how they met. And he has 2 sons and a daughter. And so they actually visit his home in this movie, and you kind of get a down. It seems weird that they get this little farmhouse, and there's Hawkeye inside with his family, and there's Captain America, and out there chopping wood, and so.
Right.
But it's a great scene, and it just shows that his wife comes up to him and tells him, that they need you, And there's a scene I really like between the cinematic Hawkeye and Black Widow in the first Avengers movie, where she's scared. She's just stepped onto this big stage, and there's an alien invasion, and she's afraid to come out of some ruins. And he's like, "Look," he said, "I know this is crazy. This is a bizarre situation. I'm out here fighting aliens, and all I got is a bow and arrow." He said, "But the fact is, we all got to do something. We all got to do what we can do." He said, "If you step out that door and you fight on our side, you're an Avenger." And so that type of character is needed to ground, some of the other characters that you see.
How many arrows does a quiver hold?
I don't know. It's according to how big your quiver is.
Well, wasn't there a part of that movie to where he was done? Yeah, he was out of arrows.
I would assume, yeah. So you got to pluck arrows out of dead guys, or but yeah, you run out of arrows just like you run out of bullets if you're
then you're useless.
Black Widow,
right?
Yeah. Well, you got your martial arts skills. So anyway, so next time Hawkeye was in Civil War, Marvel Civil War, and that was neat. He was on the side of Captain America, and this isn't a spoiler. All you guys have seen it, but those that haven't, it's still not a spoiler. If there were real heroes and they had superpowers, the government would want you to register their superpowers. They would want to know what you can do and where you're at all times. And so Captain America was against that. Iron Man was for it, and Hawkeye went on Captain America's side.
Well, yeah, because he didn't have to register.
Yeah, it's true.
Why not go with the other side? He didn't give a rat's ass.
That's true.
He didn't
That's
pertain
true.
to
But
him.
no, he went with Captain America that you shouldn't have to register. He thought that would put people in danger unnecessarily, and it was an infringement. So there was a great fight between the heroes in Civil War, and Hawkeye, he went against Iron Man, which kind of brought him back to his comic book origins. I enjoyed seeing that. He went against Black Widow, and so that was a fantastic movie as well. So the first Avengers movie with Thanos, Hawkeye had retired, so he wasn't in the first one, Avengers Infinity War.
Okay.
He wasn't in it at all. So, and this is a little bit of a spoiler if you haven't seen it, Thanos snapped, and half of all people who existed disappeared.
Right, including.
And it was his way, in his mind, it was so our resources would go further, and the biggest problem was world population or universe population, and so he snapped his finger, everybody disappeared. Well, what happened to Hawkeye in the movie he wasn't in, his wife, his 2 sons, and his daughter disappeared. So all of a sudden, everything he had fought for, everything that was most important to him, was gone. So he became the Ronin. And so he just took his skills. He didn't care about anything, life or death. And almost like the Punisher, he went out and he just street-level gangs, Yakuza, triads, New York mob, stuff like that. He hit them and hit them hard, and it wasn't taking them to jail. It was just killing them.
Right.
And
that's why I say I like the cinematic one better.
So whenever Avengers Endgame come out, which is another fantastic movie, and some might even argue the end of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because what they've come out with since then hasn't been very good in my opinion. But in this, he's got a chance to get his family back, so he rejoins the Avengers. He's the first one that goes back and tries to go back in time to see if it can even be done. He volunteers to do that, and the one part of the movie, he tries to sacrifice himself to gain an item that they need to save everybody and bring them back. Black Widow sacrifices herself instead, but they're actually fighting over who can sacrifice himself. And so, like Robert said, I like Hawkeye. I liked Hawkeye before Marvel Cinematic Universe.
At that moment, you had to give up something you love, right?
Right.
Okay.
So I mean,
did he love her?
Yeah, he did care for her. Yeah. Now it might not have been a romantic love. It might not have been a romantic love. It was at one time, but I think they've gone beyond that. So even though not romantic, he still loves her. So, but anyway, so at the end game, you thought that kind of ended the Marvel Cinematic Universe Hawkeye story because he went into retirement again. Well, then Disney Plus comes along. They decided they're going to do a series. So the series Hawkeye, and it's where he meets Kate Bishop, and so it's going back to those Matt Fraction, David Aja comics that we talked about earlier. I knew what I was getting into when I went and saw it. So a lot of people were expecting alien invasions, Thanos snaps, killer robots, and these big world threats. And instead you got a guy that's trying to get home to his family for Christmas. And so it was a much smaller, down-to-earth story that I was accustomed to because I knew it was going to be based on the comics that I'd read that I really, really liked. So a lot of people, it was the lowest rated Disney Plus series about Marvel up until recently when Miss Marvel come out. It's lower rated than Hawkeye. But so a lot of people didn't watch it. A lot of people that watched it didn't like it. I watched it and loved it. I give it probably a 9 out of 10. I loved it. It reintroduced the Kingpin. A lot of people didn't like the way they reintroduced Kingpin.
Was it the same character?
Same guy played Kingpin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
And so it's just it's number one. It's set during Christmas time. I love Christmas. Got Hawkeye in it. I love Hawkeye. It's got a 1972 Dodge Challenger in it. I've owned 3 Challengers. Love Challengers. So it's got archery in it. So the odds of me liking it, was pretty great. But yeah, it's a real good down to earth story. It's not these big huge world events. And the girl they get to play, Haley Steinfeld, I think her name is, that plays Kate Bishop. Fantastic actress. I mean, outstanding. And so you got this old man and this young woman that plays off each other, and two different generations. And the movie starts out, or the series starts out, TV series starts out, 6 one-hour episodes. Starts out with her as a little girl, and it's the aliens that attacked. And they blow a hole in the side of her skyscraper, and she's standing there watching the Avengers fight off these alien invasion in New York City. And she sees a guy out there trying to do his damnedest with a bow and arrow. And she thinks, wow, if he can do that, So her father died in that attack. And at the funeral, she told her mom, she said, I want to be able to protect myself. And she said, don't worry, honey, I'll protect you. And she's like, no, I think I need a bow and arrow.
Yeah, out of everything she saw in that window. That's what I want.
That's what I can do. Yeah. She didn't have a magical hammer or couldn't turn into a gamma monster. So anyway, but it's a real good play back and forth. A lot of people give it criticism. They say, it's a bait and switch. It was supposed to be Hawkeye, but it was actually a lot about Kate Bishop. They're talked about doing a series.
But she will become Hawkeye, right?
Yeah. So they talked about doing a second season. They kicked around the idea. A lot of people want them to do it totally on Kate Bishop. I think that would be a mistake. There's something called Odd Couple, that play off each other. Like let's say you really like DC and I like Marvel.
Yeah.
Let's say you didn't like Hawkeye, but I loved Hawkeye.
Okay.
See, that dynamic makes it more interesting than if 2 people hate the same thing or 2 people love the same thing, in my opinion. Because somewhere, the people out there that are watching this video,
right,
some of them like Hawkeye, and some of them are like you, they don't like Hawkeye. Chances are, if they don't like Hawkeye, they're not watching this. But they may
not
watch
necessarily.
it. Yeah. But the thing is that that is a good series. I actually sent you a text to come pick it up so that you could watch it.
Yeah, my wife has been busy.
Yeah, I know you don't have time because you're moving and everything. But, so, let's see. Let's get rid of some, let's take care of some business real quick. Our last giveaway was during the Kenobi series. And we give away this hardback book. And the person that won it is Bots Book Buzz. Can you say that fast 5 times?
Bots Book Buzz, Bots Book Buzz, Bots Book Buzz,
No,
Bots Book Buzz.
You couldn't do it.
Here, let's have another drink. Let me try again.
So anyway, you want, we'll get that to us, contact us, and we will get that to you. And also, I made a trick arrow. I posted pictures. I actually, when I started putting my geek room together, I made a trick arrow. And what I did was I took an arrow and I put a shotgun shell on the end of it, and I took a field point, tried to line it up with the primer. Took super sculpting and sculpted around it. Like I said, there's a picture on our Facebook page. And the goal was to shoot it up in the air, have it land, and this field point would hit that primer and make that shotgun shell explode. And so that we're going to try to do that at the end of this video, and you'll see how successful we was. But I have a challenge for you. I challenge you.
All right.
Here's my challenge. You like Green Arrow so much?
Right.
All right, so sometime in the future, you don't have to do it next, but sometime in the future, when you do a Green Arrow video, let's see you come up with a trick arrow.
I will.
Okay.
No, I've already designed. I've designed several trick arrows.
Okay, all right. Well, there you go. All right. Okay, so let's see. As far as giveaways, like we said in our 400 subscriber video, which if you haven't watched, you should. we explain it more. We're giving away a mega mystery box when we reach 500 subscribers. Now, this box is going to be big. It's going to be full of awesome crap.
Geeky goodness.
Matter of fact, I'll tell you one of the things that's going to be in it: $100 Visa gift card.
Nice.
Yes.
So even if you're a geek or not?
Yeah, so even if you're not a geek, you can throw the geeky stuff away, or don't throw it away. Give it to a geek.
Give it to a geek
Yeah, give it
friends.
to a geek. But you'll have the $100 gift card. So once we reach 500 subscribers, we'll give that away. To be eligible for it, you need to be a subscriber and comment on one of our videos. So every comment, since we made our 400 subscriber video and released it, every new comment on a new video going forward, or on even the old, I think we got like 40 videos in the past, so any of those videos, if you comment on it, I'll get a notification, we'll get a notification, and your name will go in a hat. Each time you comment, that is one chance to win. So, am I forgetting anything?
I don't think so.
All right, man. Toast. All right, man. See you later.
All righty.
You done?
I'm done.
All right, I'm done.
You know what redneck's last words are? Yeah, it's usually hold my beer. Hey, y'all, watch this. This is nothing.
Big, we off to a good start.